So I thought maybe we do, if anybody has a specific question or scenario that they'd like to go over on this call, please go ahead and chat it in the box or email axel@notequeen.com. I thought just for kicks and giggles, we might do a little bit of a scenario. I would just share one thing that I've got going on here locally. I've been pretty distracted by things of late, but I do have one flip going on, and this is in a mobile home park, which I said I would never do any more of because it just can be so challenging, but this was sensible, and I thought it was a really interesting, not your average scenario. So I thought I would just share it real quick, just to say that there still are some things going on. This kind of dropped in my lap, and so anything that doesn't drop in my lap doesn't happen. So here's a couple of things. I think I'll just share my screen real quick to get my calculator out. But anyway, this is a mobile home in a park. So what are the things that we worry about if you've never done any mobile home park investing? What's the biggest concern for anyone?
Monthlies versus dailies?
Huh?
Like what kind of tenant culture you have there?
Oh, I just mean, investing in in a mobile home inside a park where you don't. So Megan,
there's no real estate.
On first, it's chattel,
Reno,
Tahoe area, right? And so you're always in, no matter what, you're always in second lien position. If you've got a note against a mobile home, you're second behind space rent, and the owner and the manager can make or break your investment. So I've had things that have gone extraordinarily well, and I've had things that they just ate me alive because they can starve you out, So if they don't like you, or they have a point to make, and they need to show that sometimes that they're in charge, it can be really wild. Like I had one, this was early on, I remember one in Florida where I thought, gosh, what a slam dunk. I bought the note at a great discount. It was paying perfectly, and then it didn't. And then the park decided they wanted that, they wanted that house. And so somehow the new buyers that were interested, once I took it back, new buyers decided, they never approved the new buyer. So they can just starve you out for space rent. So it can really be a nightmare. And especially, I think the mobile home division just recently got put under, not too long ago, the overall Nevada housing. I'm not sure exactly what the political landscape is, but anyway, they take their jobs really, really seriously, and it's practically like doing business in the Fourth Reich when you're inside of a mobile home park. And if you even have so much someone sniff your mobile home that doesn't have a contractor's license, pays the extra fees, and they make it expensive and a pain in the butt. Anyway, so this gal calls, and I'm like, okay, I know better, but I'm going to just talk to this. Anyway, so she bought this mobile home for $55,000 4 months ago, all cash. And I said, so why are you leaving? Okay, well then she says, I need to sell fast before February 1st. And I go, well, why is that? So first she told me it was because she has to move in with her niece to help her because she's not doing very well. But really what it turned out to be is that she couldn't make space rent February 1. So this is in January that I picked this up. And here's the story of sometimes a big cash down payment isn't as strong of an indicator as you would think. So this gal, as the story eventually unraveled, she was homeless before she was living out of her car after she bought this mobile home. She won $200,000 cash from one of the local casinos. And so she bought a new car and she bought a mobile home, and that cost her a total of combined $100,000. And in 4 months, she did not have, she'd gone through the other $100,000 and didn't have enough space rent to pay for February. So that's how, even so it's really, really tragic actually. But and this is one other time I bought a note where I thought it was a slam dunk, because $160,000 purchase price of the property, $100,000 down payment, only a $60,000 note, which I bought for 40. I thought, how can I lose? Well, that 100,000, I didn't source it. I didn't even question it. I mean, this was part of my learning curve. That was same thing, some sort of lottery winning. So just because someone puts a lot of money down doesn't mean they know how to handle money. Like in 4 months, she went through $100,000, had nothing left. She wasn't even, she didn't even pay her water bill the last 3 months. And it was really cold inside the house because she couldn't afford heat. So it was a very interesting thing. And I said, and I was talking to the guy that's licensed here, Doug Smith. I don't know if you guys know him. He was at one of my Tahoe deals. But I said, Doug, this lady, and he's the one that put her in there. And he goes, I had no idea she would run out of money that soon. And we were talking about what we should do. And anyway, I said, look, here's my all cash offer. And it's not very high because I have to, $700 a month in space rent, which includes, you know, a few of the other monthly things. But it's like, I've got to be able to hold that for 6 months. So that's $4,200 in space rent that I even have to just factor in. And there's other things, you never know what they're going to tell you that you have to do in the park. But anyway, so cash price wasn't all that high, but she goes at first, well, I really want the cash. And I said, I really don't think you should have the cash, because see what, you know, what happens is that it disappears really fast. You get friends that come to help you spend it, and then you're left with nothing. So by the end of the week, I was able to talk her into carrying paper on it, which it's easier for me. I could pay her quite a bit more. I only came up with $5,000 out of pocket. And I said, look, you need a monthly payment that you can't spend. So it's kind of like your social SSI coming in. And so she finally agreed to that. But I thought it was just a really interesting deal where basically she'll get 28,000 over the next 3-4 years, and that still gives me some room just in case things are unexpected. We don't know, I may have to put a new roof, so there's a lot of expenses and unexpected how long I'll have to hold it, or if I'll have to reduce the price. So basically, she will, what is this? 25,000. And I think I said I put it in at 448. She says, I probably won't live that long. So basically this is almost doubles her monthly income that she gets from SSI or whatever. So anyway, I just thought that was curious. And even though it's one of those high risk sort of things that I typically try to avoid, but here's something where even if I end up, you know, I'll still do okay as an investment. And really it was a thing where I didn't need to carry paper to do the deal, but actually she needed it more than I did. And I consulted with the broker that was involved and knew the situation. So luckily she agreed on that. But anyway, things like that still are happening. Any questions, comments? Anyone else have a deal that they're in the middle of that they want to share? Otherwise, I'll go to just one example of a note transaction that Dave Kurtzman knows as this, because I was sort of talking to him about it last month. But
I just have one thing. We're in the process, believe it or not, of purchasing a mobile home note portfolio, chattel mortgage note portfolio, all secured by mobile homes, Dodd-Frank, you know, compliant in Las Vegas.
Really?
So I don't, you know, we got 16 notes, 7 of them are 670 FICOs or higher. So those are no-brainers. We're offering, believe it or not, about 80 cents on the dollar for those, which is extremely high.
That's really high.
Yeah, really high. And the other ones we're offering about 27 cents on the dollar, which is the other 9. And the, you know, we have bad credit borrowers, but some of them have better pay history. Some of them have verified, pension and SSI monthly income. So I'd like to speak. I mean, I don't know if now's the right opportunity to do that, but I think I'd like to pick your brain a little bit more about what to look for, because I am not an expert in chattel mortgages in the state of Nevada.
Well, I don't know that I'm an expert, but I have a few notes, and that's why I usually sort of avoid them. But, I think anyone who's buying a large portfolio is probably a different type of player than a mom and pop. You've got hedge funds. People are
No, these are privates.
the privates,
Privates buying it for 80 cents on the dollar.
and they don't own the park.
No, this is their space rent. Yeah, the park rentals, right? So this chattel mortgage.
Yeah, for the most part, I would rather just deal in the mobile home park itself instead of this. Although, even in worst case scenario, if I have to hold it for 6 months, $5,000 selling fees, $10,000 to $12,000 fix-up fees. If I aim to make 15,000, I'll probably maybe make 10.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I go on these.
I see.
But anyway. But chattel mortgage, yeah, I can talk to you, but
Yeah.
I don't know how helpful it'll actually be. But talk about mobile home parks, that kind of feeds right in to something I was working on last month. This is I call him a kid because he's probably the age of a little older than my oldest daughter. But I knew him from 4 or 5 years ago. He's in Texas, working mobile home parks, and he was doing the mobile home gig game, like what I just described to you here, where I bought this, I bought this home. Of course, I'm paying on this, but he would buy them for, whatever, 5,000-7,000, and then turn them around, sell them for 30, 35. And so I worked with him because at that time, I had just barely gotten brand new, tiny little inherited Roth IRAs for each one of my kids. So I only had $5,000 in each one of them. So I was busy trying to do these little micro deals. So he and I worked together anyway. Good kid. So he was very responsible, very honest. And, he worked through any problems that came up. And so I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, and all of a sudden he gives me a call, and he's graduated to buying mobile home parks. I think he's got a financial partner that with fairly deep pockets, but he's really done well. And so he says, I've got this one mobile home park in Texas that I got it under contract at $6.4 million. It just appraised at $6.8 million. The reason I got the deal is because the husband and wife are in the midst of a nasty divorce, and they just want to sell. And it was a pocket list, and it hadn't even gotten out on the internet yet. And the agent was just, trying to sell it, double-end it. And he said the problem is because of the way they've kept their books, they were commingling their personal expenses with the business. So he wasn't able to get his normal bank financing for the purchase of this at $6.4 million. It just was a little too high for the underwriting. So he said, but I really want this park because I know we can blah, 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 add value. We can raise space rent. We can pull in 30 new homes. We can blah, 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 blah. We know that we're going to amp up the cash flow really quickly. So can you figure a way that we can do it? So basically I said, I think I spent about an hour talking with him over the course of a few days and getting some emails. And he says, look, I said, what's the most you can put down? What is the biggest down payment that you can? Well, they're 1031ing $2 million from the sale of another part. And I said, okay, that's like 30% down, pretty close to. And then I said, so what can you pay and still make this cash flow? So I started with always, what can the borrower pay, even if it was on this level? And so I go, then I know what I need the payments to be. And then I go, well, what do the sellers need? And they said, well, they need to cash out quickly. But I think that they'll be willing to take maybe a down on their note, which is not very big, right? And I go, okay, well, would one of the parties be willing to wait for their money? Because they only needed 3 years on the note before they could refinance with a bank loan, pull out money, and still cash flow it even better. So, so he said, yeah, I think if we can pay off the wife, I think the husband would take the balloon instead. So anyway, so if I have to make a tiny weeny little discount to make the overall numbers work, then I've got to have at least usually one party, and still make it affordable for the buyer. I had to have at least one party that was willing to wait for their money. That way the overall discount looks extraordinarily small because of that time value of money. So, and this deal didn't come down, but it was this close to coming, and I was super excited about it. So what we had done is 6.4 million purchase price, and he was going to put down 2 million equals. So, and then I was going to break this into, what did I say? Okay, I was going to break this into a 2.4 million dollar first that I would buy. And that left $2 million as a balloon in 2 to 3 years. So basically the people splitting it, they'd be willing to take this, represented a $400,000 discount was 6%. So he says, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can sell that to them. So basically $2 million was as the balloon, and the guy, I was able to work in $10,000 a month cash flow for him as well, and still make the numbers work for the borrower. But what I was working on was a $2.4 million note that was, I think we put it at 8%, and I think that was interest only. So of course I'm going to put a future value the same. And of course, when it's interest only, it doesn't matter what your N is, your term. Is that right? No, I think I might have made it even 9%, because the higher the face rate on the note, the less of the discount, because it's closer to the overall yield that my investor wanted. And in this case, the privates that are willing to move fast, a lot of them are wanting 14, 15, 16% yield. And so I had to reverse engineer, what can the buyer pay? What will the seller accept? And what will my investor want? So basically it was something like this. $10,000 a month was applied to that second lien that the seller was going to carry. Anyway, so then if I bring someone in, and then I need to get paid. And so I was taking off the 4.4 million. I said 2 points on that is 88,000. So just to round it up, 2.1 million I'm trying to bring in from my partner. And if I can't put the whole thing together, then that's enough money. 88,000 is enough to share, right? With someone else who could be my financial partner on it. Anyway, really super close. So it was a good win-win for everybody. But what ended up happening is their divorce kept getting nastier and nastier. So by the point that he was, and I had worked out the scenario, a couple different scenarios, and trained him on how he can present the offer to the husband the divorcing husband and wife. And they had gotten so bad that the husband was afraid that if he carried that note for 3 more years, she'd find a way to go after him. And so, and good for this kid, because he said, look, here's a good offer where you only discounted 200,000 each on the overall sale of this. Or you can drop another $1 million off the purchase price. And at that point I can get my bank to underwrite it. And that's what they went for. So this kid, instead of getting the property, it's appraised at 6.8, he ended up getting it for less than 5.8. And at that purchase price.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you know offhand what it was cash flowing monthly?
When they took it over, they could afford a debt service of 33,000. So I'm assuming that debt coverage ratio, reverse engineer the debt coverage ratio of about 1.2-ish, 1.1. So, and they knew that they were going to be able to add a lot more. And he had a track record. That's one of the things I asked him for. It's because you want to know that it's the operator. People, like I said, I just gave a story of people can put down a lot of money and still not know what the hell they're doing. And so I liked being at less than 50% on this and knowing that he had a really positive track record for the last 7 deals that he did. Plus, I knew him from 4 or 5 years ago, and he was a really upstanding kid that I would, not hesitate to do business with. And Dave Kurtzman can speak to, when you've got younger people that, you really trust the operators, you can underwrite a deal in a much different way than you would someone that's just, a neutral third party. Because I think it's interesting what you're doing, Dave, with Pat and, what's his name? Pat and Kyle, no, over there in Missouri. I forget his name.
Matt.
Matt.
Pat and Matt. Pat and Matt. Matt and Pat. It sounds like like one of those stories, like I'm the Lorax and I speak for the trees or something. Yeah, Pat and the Hat, Matt and the Pat, Pat and the Matt. Something like that. So anyway, so I liked this deal because yes, you still need to do the underwriting, but with this kind of number, if my investor, if this deal had gone through and we divide by 6.8, we can see that the investment to value would have been 31%. And we know and that's a first lien position, right? And a very clean, instead of doing a partial, I first set this up as a partial and the numbers even looked more impressive. But my investor didn't like that so much because they thought that, and rightly so, that it could potentially get sticky if there's an early payoff or a late payoff. And so they were just much more comfortable with me breaking it apart into 2 notes. And so that's the way I did it. And I think it is a lot cleaner. There's 1 note for selling and 1 note for holding, but look at that. A 14, actually, this isn't exactly right, but anyway, it was more like a 15% yield if it went the full 36 months. And the seller was still going to get his $10,000 a year, 120. So if he would have carried that $2 million note and got 120,000 times 3 years, basically he would get, it kind of erases the discount in a way, because, okay, you took a $400,000 discount on, or $300,000 discount on that, $400,000 discount from 2.4 down to 2 million. But you're making 360,000 interest plus your balloon. So you can see that we could make it look like on paper that there almost was no discount whatsoever. And so it was really close. But so it's nice when there's some motivation. Like for me in this situation, them having some motivation was good, but too much motivation and they just slashed their price. And all of a sudden I wasn't needed. They can get their bank financing for, I don't know, 5-6%.
Mm.
And so
how long ago was this, Dawn?
Huh? What? Pardon?
How long ago was this?
Last month.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, I was working over it. And then in the beginning of this month, he said that the sellers came to him and were willing to drop the price so much that with the 2 million down, even though the books were messy, their banking partner, institutional partner, was willing to finance them. And so it was a killer deal for him. But what I did there was educate him on how you can create a custom solution. And he says, probably I'll be back to you in the next month or so, because there's a property that we want to sell that we've got really wonderful, except for anyone who wants to buy it has a tough time getting traditional financing. And I go, first I'm like, why? if the banks never want to lend in that, area, my first question is, well, why? Because why would I want to get in there? But basically he could see that if I know that if let's say they were the seller in this situation and the buyer brought in a nice fat down payment, like 35%, 40% down payment, and I can reverse engineer to where, I'm 33% or less loan to value by that person. If I know they're carrying a significant second, not a little one, a significant second, then I know anything goes bad, the people that know how to operate and that are there locally. Now, theoretically, this works well, right? It doesn't always pan out this way. But if they've still got $1 million left on the line, they're not, unless something really goes bad, they're not going to walk away from it. And I like having someone who's, really ready and willing to step in. And so he can see that if they're willing to carry a second lien position, that they can almost cash out, well, they can definitely get all their seed capital out between a big down payment and creating 2 notes and selling off the first, reverse engineering depending on the deal. And I said, just count on needing to give up 14, 15, 16%. That includes broker fees and all of that. It's included in that number. It's not like someone's going to have to pay 5 points for a private loan, but it's already worked into the numbers. So I have a feeling that'll come back around, but maybe that thinking gives somebody else some ideas. I had another gal in Southern California, same deal, where her tenants can come up with $35,000 or 35% down, but they're not financeable. And I just said, look, if you're willing to keep some of it on the backside, I can create a smaller first so that I can buy relatively quickly. Maybe after 1 month payment, I'm not sure. I'd be pretty careful, especially in California, not to be confused with an originator. So I might make them accept at least the first month payment and buy it after that. So anyway, it's just a thing to think about of how I can still make good money. I can still keep myself and my investing partners safe. And create solutions for buyers, sellers, and all that. I mean, $100,000 was just funny money to her anyway, because her property just rose $100,000 in the last year there in California. So we've had that here too, where things are just all of a sudden $100,000 higher than they were a year or two ago. So anyway, those are just a couple of examples. Anything else? Abby, I know, did anyone have a question or a scenario that they wanted to share?
David.
I don't know if that was helpful or not. Just saying, hey, things still are happening, even though I've been living under a rock proverbially.
So it looks like David has something to discuss. I mean, I have a couple deals, but I know, let's hear it, David.
Casey Jackson and I, he had 2 notes secured by some land around Houston, and I bought the first, and he still holds the second.
Yeah.
And it's been it's a 12% note that jumps to 18, and it's been a fairly good payer. But he's now got 3 kids going into college. He wants to turn it over to his aunt, who doesn't have a credit report worth much because she's running at a mini market and her bookkeeper stole the money or whatever the story is. And my thinking is there's no way that we would get paid off, and we don't want to be paid off. And my gut feeling is that the only way to handle it would be for him to sell the property to her on a contract for deed. Keeps him in the game. Yeah, a contract to sale, whatever. And so we sit in the same position,
right? And
I'm in the better position because Casey's behind me. He tried to get me to buy both notes, and I said, no, I want you in the rearview mirror.
Well, the point I was making is Texas is having a rolling blackouts. It's terrible, right? Their infrastructure is really not designed for the kind of cold spell that they're having. But something he can slip on the ice and crack his head. And all of a sudden, something that seemed really, I mean, I did this with that portfolio in Missouri that, you know, I've had misery getting out of some of that Missouri because I was banking on the guy, being my boots on the ground, having a substantial second, and he went and got pancreatic cancer and died. And so then it left me, I bought these at performing note prices, and it turned into, several of them turned into non-performing. And, you know, I've gotten out okay, except for one. I took a beating on that one from 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, that was not fun. That was not fun at all.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you know, he has no heirs, so I guess his partial down the road on a couple of the ones that are actually perform, I'll end up with them over time and do okay, make up for the losses. But every time that I've done something banking on someone else is going to be there, it's turned out to not be the best, smartest decision. It has to stand on its own, even though, you know this, Dave, like the operator makes all the difference. But if those operators, something happens to them, then all of a sudden it's not quite as warm and cozy.
So in the current situation, because he needs to do something, and if we keep him on the title, and he can do it on a contract to his aunt, at least we're in a sense in the same position. You know, he can slip on the ice right now too.
Yeah, no, I'm in Casey.
Pardon?
I'm talking about Casey, really.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I'm talking about the guy that is holding the second position behind you. You want them to live, to be healthy, not to be paralyzed. And you want them to still have a big enough interest that they're not going to walk away, so that, you know, I don't know.
And I don't, to be honest, I don't know how much hard money he has in that note, because I don't know the terms when he put the whole thing together in the first place.
Yeah. So. And a point to that is I had a note in the portfolio for 4 years, that perfect pay history. And this was secured by a mobile home park in Arkansas, of all places. But the discount we got and the yield we got, it all made a lot of sense. And so I thought, well, it's performing perfectly for 4 years. I'm going to sell this out to an attorney. Had a client and they wanted it for their client. I said, look, I'll sell it at par. And I think they took it at a 6.5% yield. So we did really well getting out of it. A few months later, it tanked. And they were lucky. They were just, the guy that they ended up selling it, wrapping the note, the guy put down a big payment, and then he lost a lot of his business, and he couldn't keep up even the utilities on, and so like it was just a complete disaster. And the guy that was in second position, I would have guessed that he would have worked a lot harder to keep and I felt bad. I came in to help. I wasn't really involved directly anymore, but I came in to help whatever I could do to help solve the problems and create the connections, working with this attorney and his client. But they got out with their money, but it should have been easier. But that second who stood to lose like $400,000, at the end of the day, they go, you know what? I'd rather walk away from the $400,000. And I guess he got from what he put in it and the down payment he got and everything else, he felt like, I got paid well enough. I'm really willing to walk. I'm not going to throw any more money at this unless you're going to discount to half, 50%. And it's like, what? The attorney said, no. Just to say, things are surprising sometimes. Like you think that you have a no lose situation, and it can turn in that way. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do things. I mean, you can lose a lot of money doing nothing too. So or gambling and hoping that you're going to make another 200,000 in the meantime, living in your car. I mean, I'm sure that's what she's doing. It's like, oh, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to gamble all my money. That poor lady. Anyway.
Or we could just keep the money in the bank and let it drip 15%, let it leak 15% a year, one or the other.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't believe it. We're already at the end of the hour. And it's been really enjoyable. Thank you for being with. Especially at these times, we really need to be coming together in our communities. I've spent a lot of time just managing. Like, I feel really good today, but sometimes I'm processing an overwhelming amount of sadness for things that I see happening. Sometimes it's really heavy for me. Yeah. And so I just keep coming back to the basics of, I know everyone's on the path that they need to, but some of the things that I see and the lies that are being perpetrated upon the people are just incredibly heavy to handle. So I'm just going after my morning and evening meditations and my time in nature, with 2 hands, and to just, and then I just have to flow with it. I don't know how everyone else is doing, but I have days that feel like I'm walking through tar, and I don't have a ton of productive energy really in a day. It's like, oh, I did things for 4 hours. Okay, that's good. And other days I'm like, woo, I feel good. Today's one of those days. But I think it's a time when we're all just really being called to say, what do we really believe in, and what do we have faith in? I still am, even though I'm very discouraged by a lot of things that I see right now, I just can't give up that feeling of faith and hope that I think there's going to be, and I could be wrong, but that's okay. I've been wrong before, but I really think in the next couple of months, there may be some things that are some really interesting game changers. But at the end of the day, if I'm sitting, like you said, Abby, looking at my phone, waiting for the verification that something out there is changing so that I can feel good in here, that's kind of going at it backwards. I've got to kind of make sure I feel good in here, regardless of what it seems like what's going on. So you guys are a very important part of me feeling like there's purpose and fun in life. I appreciate you. So continue to go out there and create financial solutions. Just mom and pop to another, and give thanks for your local sheriff, especially if he's there to protect you and defend you. So anyway, take care. I will see you next month on the probably the third Tuesday of March, which will be the 16th, I think, right? March 16th. Okay. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.